Hey everybody, it's Aaron here with Robert, and welcome to Get Your Geek On's retro review of horror movies. I have no idea what we're gonna title this still.
Yeah, well, way to go. You already ruined it.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
What did we call the first one?
I don't remember either. Horror movie review, something like that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
retro. We'll go with that.
I don't know. We're back again
We're back,
to talk
and
through
so we're back.
another review of a classic horror film. This one is Halloween. So we are here to talk about John Carpenter's classic 1978 Halloween. Of course, kind of it feels like the original slasher movie. I don't know if it truly was the
Mm,
first one, but it just kind of feels like this is the one that really broke through, right? This
right.
is the movie that is the iconic slasher movie. The
It's
Nightmare on Elm Streets and the
Friday the 13th.
yeah, Friday the 13th. Those come after. This one is
Right.
first, right? Halloween is first, and
I mean, I
yeah,
guess you could say of the big three, he's the original because it's Michael
for sure,
Myers, Jason, and Freddy.
right?
So yeah, he would be the original. At bare minimum, like you said, there may have been other slashers, and we could try to go back to like Dracula, the 50s and stuff. But
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
those are
this is
like
the
monster
original.
movies, right? This
True.
is slasher is, so I definitely
Although,
think that.
no, go
Yeah.
for
No, yeah, we know Michael Myers is also supernatural in some way, right?
it.
All right.
Yeah.
But let's yeah,
Okay.
dive in. So obviously John Carpenter directed this one. I believe he also wrote it. He wrote the music as well, which is of course that iconic theme song that people will know. And then it stars, Donald Pleasance, Jamie Lee Curtis, and kind of they're the two main ones. There's a few other people that float in here and there, some recognizable faces maybe, but it's fairly a limited cast,
Yeah.
pretty low budget, but it's the slasher movie to end all slasher movies. So we watched it. Actually, we watched it together this time. We did not do that
Yes.
with The Exorcist, but we had the opportunity to do it with this one. So we watched this together, but we didn't really discuss our thoughts. So, Aaron, I have never seen this before. So this is my first time watch. You had seen it before, is that correct?
I think I've seen bits and pieces of this one, but I
Okay.
know I've seen the remake by Rob Zombie, which was
Mm,
what, like early 2000s, I think, earlier mid 2000s, I think
don't
that one
ask me
was.
that. I don't know.
I've seen all of that one, but I
Okay.
hadn't only seen bits and pieces of this Halloween.
Okay.
So it was interesting to see it almost with fresh eyes, but knowing
Yeah.
there's sequels, there's like what, four or five.
Yeah, and I think that that's the first thing that I guess I would dive into is I think that this movie probably doesn't play as well knowing that there's more to come in
Right.
this than it did maybe, the first time when people were watching this in 1978. Because ultimately, I'm watching this and I know that Michael Myers as a villain is going to keep returning. I know that Jamie Lee Curtis is in sequels, so I know she's going to survive. I actually, spoiler alert, I was surprised that Donald Pleasance ended up living at the end
Yeah.
as the doctor because I thought he would die.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I thought that too.
but ultimately this movie didn't have a whole lot of surprises or shocks in it, and I think that for a low budget film it's
Hmm.
filmed well. There's some cool shots, there's some interesting ways that they kind of frame, especially for the first half of the movie you really never see Michael Myers' face or his mask. Like
Hmm.
it's all in either quick shots or you see like a shot where it's only from the neck down.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. Like I thought that was an interesting trope. He's the boogeyman, as they keep saying, and so the fact
Right.
that we don't know really what the boogeyman looks like, I thought that was working for the movie overall. But I will say, it didn't. I don't know. It doesn't hold up from an acting standpoint. Most of the
No.
acting is pretty over the top, and especially like all the death scenes, I think
Oh
were
God.
were pretty ridiculous. Um, and even Jamie Lee Curtis, you can see who she's gonna become and that she's
Right.
gonna become a better actress, but in this movie there are some cracks. And so yeah,
Now,
ultimately the movie itself, it's does it hold up? I don't know. I mean, I think you would have to watch this. You would have had to watch this before knowing that there were sequels, and
right.
I can't imagine getting into it now. Again, this is my first time, and I kind of was like, it was okay.
It was. And now I'll say this. I mean, kind of starting with the acting, like you said, the deaths are so over the top. I mean, they are so ridiculous that it borders line comedy for me. Like where he kills one girl in the car, it's like and then her like she's dead, and her eyes are still like moving around, and I'm like, you're supposed to be dead. Like just close your eyes and fall over dead. Don't keep looking around like, oh, what's going on here? Let me make sure I'm landing in the right spot for the camera, because I think
Yeah.
that's what it was. She probably was trying to look for the camera and kept trying to like focus, like, oh look, I'm dying.
or
And
the
then,
or the physics defying scene where he kills the dude
oh
with
god,
it was like 2 feet off the floor by
with the
just
freaking
sticking.
kitchen
Yeah,
knife holding them
it's like
straight up through
this
the
this
door.
is not how that works. Like, do you know how
No,
heavy a human body is? Like, you
like he
cannot.
should be,
It's
no,
like the knife
those,
would be like ripping through him as the body's coming down, or it would just
exactly.
fall out of the wall. Like
Yeah,
it
because
would,
and it
like,
wasn't even a wall. I think it was a door it was jammed into, if you think about it.
yeah,
Because I
it
remember they
was,
pushed on it a couple of times.
yeah.
And then, going with Jamie Lee Curtis, I want to comment on this. This was her first movie. So, I mean, she actually didn't do bad at all. Like,
No, I mean, you can see the talent.
exactly.
There's
Like,
there's
she was the
definitely
one that brought it.
there's a couple of over the top, like where she's doing her screaming or like
Yeah,
looking looking scared, where it's like, yeah, you're over the top here. But that's
exactly.
the movie. I mean, that's
It
what it is.
is.
It's a low budget 70s horror thriller, like, so
Exactly.
everybody's kind of got that feeling to them. I will say, this did have some cool scenes. I think
Hmm.
maybe my favorite scene in the movie is the closet scene where she barricades herself in there
Oh,
and
yeah.
Michael Myers is coming after her, and the way that they play with like the light going on and off and like
Yeah,
that type of thing. Like, that was a cool sequence.
it was.
That I enjoyed that. And definitely, like, I thought the ending was really interesting, where the doctor kind of shows up and shoots him. We see him fall out the window. They kind of have a discussion about whether or not he's in fact the boogeyman, and
Hmm.
then the next time you look out the window, again,
He's
he's
gone.
gone. And so
Nobody double taps.
yeah, I like that, and I thought that was an interesting way to end
It,
it, because then really we kind of cut to black. So
exactly. I would say I like the house scene. And again, Jamie Lee Curtis is all pretty much in that whole section, and her acting shined. I actually liked where she's against the wall and you see the blackness
it's
and
a
then
great
just
shot.
the mask. I was like,
Yeah.
that's the perfect money shot for Michael Myers, to see the mask
Yeah.
finally like
And I
that.
will say, like, that is such a great shot, but it's followed up by him apparently stabbing her in the shoulder from 3 seconds. Like, it's like, how did you miss? Like, it's
He's
like,
in the lights hitting his eyes so you
yeah,
can get this cool
100%
look.
she should be dead in that moment. And so
She should.
it was undercut. Like, the coolness of that shot was undercut by the fact that he totally failed to kill a completely
Look,
unsuspecting individual.
the problem is he wanted to look like Michael Myers is like, I gotta make this look cool. How? I'll shine this light right here. Oh, it's blinding me a little bit. I'm just gonna swing. And oh, I missed. Okay.
Uh,
I
so
mean, yeah.
ultimately, the movie. I think I had fun watching it because, and I think part of that was that we were watching it together, and so,
Right.
like, we could kind of, there we could. We weren't like talking over the movie or anything, but like, there's a little bit of like reacting or talking about, like, there's one in particular scene where they're on their way to babysitting, right? And so there's this car sequence where he's driving behind them, and there's like, it's twilight, and then it's a hard cut, and all of a sudden they're arriving at the house is in complete darkness, and you're like, wait, what just happened? Like, how much of a time jump did we just do? Like,
Yeah.
it was
It's
really
a complete.
interesting. um
Yeah.
and so I, like, again, I thought, like, being able to comment on that kind of as we were watching it and being like, wait, what just happened?
And it
Kind
really
of
is like that.
brought my enjoyment up of the movie, because I think ultimately it's a middling movie. Certainly, I could understand if you watched this like when you were a kid or when it first came out.
Hmm.
You might love this movie. It's like scary to you at that age. It's oh, he's the boogeyman and you can't kill him and what's going on, all this stuff. But watching it as an adult, the effects are a little bit cheesy. The acting is
Hmm.
a little bit cheesy. Most of the movie making stuff, again, you can see that John Carpenter is a master, but he also doesn't maybe have the budget or the tools to do everything
I
he wants to do.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where you can see the promise, like again, that shot you were talking about. But then there's, a bad edit where it goes
Hmm.
like where time, seems to jump all of a sudden, or things like
Wibbly
that,
wobbly,
where it's
timey
like,
wimey.
we just didn't have the budget to shoot that scene again at a different
Yeah.
time of day. Like we had to shoot it this one time. That's when we got it.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the time. So there's probably another film on that lot being filmed or something that they
sure.
needed to move off. Who
Yeah.
knows?
So it's one of those things where, again, you can see the promise, and
Hmm.
John Carpenter, of course, 4 years later makes The Thing, which I think is a masterpiece.
Yes.
And so you can
And
see, what he's able to make in something like that, and you can see that again, just like with Jamie Lee Curtis, you can see the seeds of
right.
where he's going to go next, but people hold this up in the same breath as The Thing, and they say,
No,
John Carpenter's two horror classics, Halloween and The Thing, and to me, they're not really comparable. I
they're
think this
not.
one is not really even close to the same level as The Thing.
And I want to comment on this part because you talk about the thing, and we're not going to watch that one because I think we both considered that not really a horror film, but more suspense. I think I don't know about
Sure.
you. That's where I hold it.
Yeah, and it's got some
Um,
freaky things in it, but
yeah.
but yeah, it's not really horror. It is
So
amazing and fantastic. But
it is, and I wonder if what bothers me a little bit too is that before we filmed this recording, because we filmed these ahead of time, guys. They
mhm,
just did John Carpenter's The Thing re-release in theaters in 4K. We just saw that what
we
maybe two
did.
three weeks ago,
Yeah.
and or before the recording again. And I want to know if maybe that's also playing a trick on my mind too, because that to me that was like way up here. It's like yes, this was a
Hmm.
John Carpenter. Yeah, man, I agree. And then this comes way down. So I wonder if we would have watched it in reverse order. If it, but we both seen The Thing, so it's like
Yeah.
I don't know if it would have helped this film. But I agree. There's shots that are just terrible like that, and it makes you wonder: is it a budget thing? Is it that movie companies didn't have faith in this, so they're just like you only get like so many days. That's it. We don't care. Again, though, he kind of starts, I believe, that trend of like who dies first. The whole if you have sex in a film, you're going to be dead. So it's like we don't see it, well, we see it once, but we see the other stuff off camera, and then it's like, oh well, they have to die now, and then
Yeah.
they go get killed. And that's where Jamie Lee Curtis commenting that she's the Girl Scout, even, and it's like, yeah, the goody
Hmm.
goody never dies. That's the whole point of these slasher films.
Right.
Um, so I again, he hits those tropes, and yeah, I think he started them maybe, and I enjoy it for what it was, just a fun little slasher film, but it's not a horror film to me at all. And again, these are the films I didn't like watching, and that kept me away from horror because they were so corny and so terrible that I was like, horror is just a joke to me until, like I say, fast forward about what 30 years later or so in the about early to mid 2000s, where I'm like, ooh, this Tooth Fairy film, Insidious, Sinister, Saw, all these other films that are great films, I believe, and those brought me back into horror. Especially some of these
Yeah.
independent ones that are getting those funding that John Carpenter didn't get, and it
Sure.
makes me wonder if John
Well, you
Carpenter
can
would have
you
done it.
can do so much more with less nowadays.
Yes, and that makes me
Yeah.
wonder if John Carpenter would have started coming out now, what these kind of films would have looked like. Or now if he goes and says, you know what, I want to make a Halloween, I'm going to remake it the way I want to, with money and with all this and time and talent, could it be better than the original? Like I said, I've seen the Rob Zombie one, which I thought was good, but I really want to see John Carpenter kind of take the reins back and say, hey, let me see what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it would be hard to kind of reboot this.
Oh yeah.
There's just been so much other things, and obviously there is another sequel, which is the final one in this continuity, it seems like,
Yeah.
that's about to come out in theaters, depending on the release of this video, like when this is coming out.
Yeah.
Um, and I won't see
It
that. I'm not going to go back and watch all the sequels to this
no.
movie. It was okay. It was kind of an entertaining watch, as you said. It wasn't
Mhm.
really scary. Um, and so I am looking forward. We're going to, fast forward. We're fast forwarding through the 80s and 90s. We're not doing
We skipped
any horror
those.
movies from those decades,
We skipped
and we're
them.
getting right into the 2000s next. And I'm looking forward to being kind of more in the modern age of filmmaking, because I
Yeah.
think both The Exorcist and this movie suffer from some of those limitations that were around in the 70s, and even just some of like the acting style, the low budget, all those things. So I'm looking forward
Right.
to moving forward to the modern sensibilities, although we're still going to be in, kind of low budget genre films
Yep.
that don't always have, they're not attracting a lot of top tier talent in all of these. I think we're going to get a couple that have some pretty well known actors as we go through this, but um,
So,
ultimately, I think that this movie is okay. I mean, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
ooh,
And it's
now,
like I feel like I'm insulting people that love this movie, and I'm sorry.
but that's the point. Is that they were remembering it, and I'm not trying to be mean to anyone. They are remembering it when they watched it when they were
Yeah,
younger.
sure.
I've been told I haven't watched it, and everyone's like, it's scary. And I've seen bits and pieces of the movie It, the original It
The
film, not the
90s
new
one.
one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's corny as heck. Why are you guys scared of this? Oh, and when you're a kid and watch it, it would have been different. Okay, well, I'm an adult watching it, and it's kind of garbage. I'm sorry. So I think, yeah, you're not bashing anyone. I think it's just at the end of the day, you remember what it felt like when you were younger watching it.
Sure.
But will it hold up to this time frame? You think? Could it be released now? This kind of film, you think, or is this just nah?
I
It would,
mean, it could. Their movies like this get released all the time. They
yeah,
don't. I don't think it would become a classic if it got released, in today's environment. If this never came out in the 70s, they made it exactly the same way, and this came out this year, I think that there would be people that would love it. There would be people that, would enjoy it, but I don't think it's going to be a classic that we're still talking about 35
right,
years later or 40 years
exactly.
later, like we are with this movie.
Yep, and I agree. And my rating's actually a little bit lower. I kind of give it a 4 out of 10. Just
Ooh.
again, the only one that brought the acting to the table to me was Jamie Lee Curtis, and I think she did an amazing job for her first film. Again, brand new actress on the scene, so I give her those,
I
I
don't know,
guess those like leeways.
the guy that played Michael Myers. I mean, he was just
He was so he sounded
standing.
perfect. Standing, he sounded perfect. I loved it when he
Yeah.
talked. Talk it all. He breathed. He breathed really good on that heavy breathing, man. You nailed that. If I ever need a heavy breather, I'm calling you, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like again, it was an average film for me in general. Trying to watch it now, and I agree to you. I think if it came out now and we didn't change anything, maybe just make it a little more modernized with the cars and maybe the phones and stuff. I don't think it would do well. I think it would be like you said, you'll get those few people who are like, "Oh, this is really cool. This is a cult classic because I love horror and everything horror." Those people are going to love it, but the average moviegoer is going to tank it because they're going to be like, "This is garbage. The acting's terrible." And then I think there was a couple scenes even me and you commented like, "Hey, what's going on with why is this knife here? What's going on here?" And it's like, yeah, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. The knife just kind of, ends up in places, or even
It,
like the uh and the opening of like all the inmates being like, we
I
have
didn't
no
get that.
explanation for how that happened,
And
or what. And that's the type of thing where it's like, they're telling you a story of some kind of, he's the boogeyman, he's
yeah,
supernatural, and so
but
everything with
why?
him is not explained.
No.
And I think
And
that's where actually this franchise gets in trouble from other people, is when they do try and go back and explain things, and it doesn't seem to work. Then and so that's where,
you
the
can't
ambiguity is part of what makes this a 70s movie, where it's just like, we're not going to
exactly.
explain everything. But in some cases that does detract. Or you have like, the character of Donald Pleasance, who's playing this doctor who is like staking out the Myers house, right? And he's just like, he's there the whole time. And then, halfway through staking it out, he like turns around and sees a vehicle that's literally been there for several
It's
hours. And
been
he's
there
like,
the whole
oh
time.
my
It's like
gosh, it's that one. And you're like, you didn't look around at any point before now?
he's not
Like,
a
why is
detective,
this?
Jim. He's a
because there was a
doctor.
second where I was like, well, maybe Michael Myers drove the car back over to the Myers house because he's going to dispose of the body there, but that's definitely not what happened. And so,
Nope.
like clearly they were
Nope.
saying this neighborhood, all these houses are close enough together that this doctor that car was there the whole time. The doctor should have absolutely seen it. So it's just things like that where it's like, does that really make sense? No. And you would tell it in a little bit different way if you're making this movie today. So again, it, I think that if you love this movie and this is a classic movie to you, nothing we're going to say is going to change your mind. But if you've never seen Halloween and you're one of these people like me that's going like, oh, I got to go back and revisit these classic 70 horrors, Exorcist was better than this to me. It might not
Ooh,
be for
yeah.
you, but I think it's a better made movie, and
Yeah.
that's what elevates it.
It
Even
had
though it
better
does have,
acting for sure.
yeah, and even though it does have kind of a slower pace even than this movie, I did think like I think that's a better movie overall than Halloween. But neither one of these to me are true classics. Again, if I, watched them in the 70s,
Maybe,
watched them
yeah.
as kids, they might be classics to me, but revisiting them or
Seeing
seeing them for
him.
the first
Yeah.
time, now in
No.
today's environment, they don't hold up in the same way. I wish they
No.
did. I wish they held up like The Thing, which I do
Yeah.
think is a perfect movie. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's,
We'll
ultimately
see.
Halloween, it's okay. Maybe if you've never seen it and you really like slasher movies,
Go
go
check it
back
out.
go back
Yeah.
to the origin of this. Although I can't imagine if you are a slasher movie fan, you haven't seen Halloween.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. You have to have seen it.
I'm not sure who else I would recommend it for.
No, you've already seen it. If you love it, you've seen it. If you hate it, you've seen it probably.
Ouch.
So on that note, guys, we're gonna end it here. Definitely check out every Monday. We'll have these videos releasing all the way up until Halloween night, and on Halloween we'll have our last video come out. I think we have. Do we have the next one out? Do we know? I can't remember.
The
I don't know if you
next
do.
one, I believe, again, we are fast forwarding. The next one, I think you mentioned it earlier. We're going to do
Saw.
Saw.
So Saw will be our next review. So stay
Yeah.
tuned, guys, to check that out.
Kind of
And
switching genres. The first one we did, was more of like the supernatural exorcism,
mm-hmm.
demon possession. Now we're into kind of slasher and supernatural territory. Now we're moving to more like crazy psycho serial killer who, is going to do some horrific things to some people.
Yeah.
So,
So let's see
but
if that one
again,
holds
a
up.
movie I haven't seen. So.
So we'll see how it goes, guys. So definitely follow us at official GYG on all of our stuff: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff. And remember, stay geeky and get your geek on, guys.
Bye.